Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. So before we start our presentation session, I would like to invite you to ask you actually to open the camera to make sure that you are there. Hello, everyone. Some of you perhaps getting in trouble with their internet, so cannot join. Okay. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Yeni Indriani, and today I will be a moderator and who will manage the presentation sessions. The participants who will present their manuscript or their research work around 9 participants, and each participant will have 6 to 10 minutes to presentation and maybe 30 minutes and 3 minutes for a question session. Okay, the first speaker will be presented by Miss Nida Paradisfausia with the topic how the user satisfaction and the use of electronic medical record in hospital, a cross-sectional study. To Miss Nida, the time and screen is yours.
Hey, thank you, Miss Yeni. Let me share my presentation. Okay. Can I start the presentation?
Sure.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, I'm Nida Faradisa Fauzia. Thank you for your time. And on this occasion, I will present my paper entitled User Satisfaction and Use of Electronic Medical Record in Hospital, a Cross-Sectional Study. Introduction. Hospitals are currently maximizing service quality through contribution to SIRS or hospital information system, one of which is electronic medical record of abbreviated as EMR. EMR is a repository for patient data in digital form, stored securely, can be accessed by many authorized users, contains retrospective data and prospective information whose main purpose is to provide sustainable, integrated, quality, and efficient healthcare support. The benefit of electronic medical record for health workers are to become a basis and guide in planning, analyzing, and knowing a correlation of a disease, carrying out planning for care, treatment, and medical action that must be given to sufferers and can provide improved quality of service so as to provide protection to health workers in achieving optimal public health. User satisfaction from information system is one of several barometers of the level of success of the use and implementation of information system. Satisfaction is an assessment of whether the performance of an information system is declared bad or good, and whether the system is suitable or not based on the user objective. The evaluation of user satisfaction with EMR is expected to provide encouragement for system improvement so that it can provide increased effectiveness and efficiency of service in hospital, especially in the medical record unit. The study aimed to analyze user satisfaction with the use of EMR. The result of this research are expected to be useful for hospital management in making policy to develop EMR system in hospital and can contribute to improving hospital management science related to hospital information system technology. Method, this research use analytic research, cross-sectional study, and the population total of 132 informant, and informant are all individuals who use the EMR system outpatient care. And the research was conducted in several hospitals with the same type hospital in September 2023. And data used in this study were primary data. The technique of collecting data was done through questionnaire and used purposive sampling technique. The questionnaire was an EMR usage questionnaire consisting of 32 questions and a user satisfaction questionnaire consisting of 21 questions. The study has obtained approval through the Health Ethics Commission of the Faculty of Medicine, Universitas Muhammadiyah Surakarta. Data analysis was carried out in stage with SPSS using the Spearman correlation test. And this is the result of the study. Table 1 show the characteristic of respondent, and the most female gender, as many as 104 respondent or 78.79%, and the age 17 until 25 years, as many as 66 respondent or 50%. Okay, and the majority of information had the last diploma education. Okay, 80 informant or 60%. And then the average tenure of respondent in this study working within 1 until 5 years. Okay, this is a 65 respondent or 49.25%. And the socialization of EMR use 125 respondent or 94.70%. Okay, and then respondent in this study use EMR with varying duration every day with 67 or 50 or 50.75 using EMR for more than 5 hours per day. Okay, and this is table 2, frequency distribution of respondent according to EMR usage. Of the total 132, 120 respondent or 90.91% had good EMR usage, and 12 respondent or 9.09% had moderate EMR usage, and 0 respondent had poor EMR usage. And this is table 3, frequency distribution of respondent according to user satisfaction. Table 3 show that from 132, 124 informant or 93.94% have good user satisfaction, and 8 respondents or 6.06% have moderate user satisfaction, and 0 respondents have poor user satisfaction. And this is the last table 4, correlation of EMR usage with EMR user satisfaction. From the result of the Spearman correlation test, it was found that there was a significant correlation between EMR usage variable and user satisfaction. P-value 0.00 less than 0.05. This shows that there is a correlation between the EMR usage variable and user satisfaction with a correlation coefficient value R of 0.609. This value provides evidence that the two variables are strongly correlated. This is discussion. So the result of this research provide evidence that there is a correlation between the use of EMR and user satisfaction with a p-value less than 0.05. This is in accordance with research conducted by Sapriyadi, which showed that there is a significant correlation between EMR usage and EMR user satisfaction in the outpatient unit. Another study also mentioned that the level of satisfaction has a direct influence on system usage. It is due to user satisfaction being a factor that motivates the use of the system and has an influence on the user's perception of the benefits obtained. Research in Canada states that the use and acceptable of EMR and user satisfaction in this case, especially nurse, are good, but still lacking in user expectation. So there is still a need for EMR development to match user expectation. And in research conducted by Camasiano, it is states that users are satisfied and helped by the EMR, but there is still a need to improve the information system and as well as harmonize the module available for the EMR so that user satisfaction continues to increase. The research states that responder satisfaction with hospital information system, one of which included EMR, is still not good. It is due to not adopting the hospital management information system, truly so that there are differences in data in each section, which result in information still recording manually. And based on the result of research conducted in Kalimantan Hospital, it showed that the level of user satisfaction with EMR system is low. So it is necessary to improve the quality of EMR system and conduct training to improve the skill of hospital staff. And this is the conclusion. It shows that the use of EMR has a good level of use and user satisfaction also has good satisfaction. The study also shows that there is a relationship between EMR usage and user satisfaction with a strong correlation relationship. The result of this study are expected to the hospital to maintain the existence of EMR for user by adding feature of electronic medical record tailored to use need to maximizing the use of electronic medical record. And this is this is the reference. Okay, this is my presentation. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for Ms. Nida. I really appreciate for your presentations and perhaps, okay, I just wondering what in variables of EMR usage, there is three outcomes, right? The first is poor. You categorize in three categories: poor, moderate, and also usage. And then the proportion itself, the poor usage, show that is 0%. It means there is no the user is a poor user, right? And why did you include these variables into the statistic or the in a bivariate.
Okay, thank you for your question. And in this study, I use the questionnaire from the late research, from the late research, and there is and the questionnaire separated by three category with good, moderate, and poor. And before I did the research, I didn't expect that there is no respondent have poor uh, use satisfaction in questionnaire. So in the beginning, I did three classification. So saat pengolahan data pun saya juga intinya ikut dengan pengklasifikasian awal, karena dari awal saya sudah mengklasifikasikan menjadi three level ya. Itu saja sih. Dan kenapa saya dari awal membagi three level tersebut? Because in this study I use informant from several hospital with similar type, yaitu type C hospital. So I use type C hospital because is that hospital EMR is still newly used. So dari awal saya lebih ke prefer mungkin karena itu masih still newly used pada hospital type C, jadi kemungkinan ada poor ya, yang klasifikasinya poor. Tapi ternyata saat pengambilan data itu malah mereka itu sudah moderate and good. Mungkin begitu saja. Thank you for your question.
Okay, thank you. In my point of view, Nida, I think it will be better if you exclude it in bivariate, in a bivariate, because
Thank
it
you.
will affect the
Okay,
hospital.
thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Miss Nida. That's all from Miss Nida. And then the second presenter will be Miss Roro Flaviana Bayu Astiawani. Miss Roro, are you there? So, okay. Miss Roro. Okay, I think Miss Roro is not coming, right? So we're gonna like we will. Hello, Miss Roro. Okay, because Miss Roro didn't cannot attend to this session, so we'll go ahead to the third presenter. The third presenter will be presented by Silviana Dian Putri Ihsani.
Yeah, Bu.
Miss Silviana. Okay,
Yes,
please prepare your presentations. And your times will be 11 minutes. And start from now.
Yeah. Let me share screen my presentation. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Silviana Dian Putriksani, NIM G4 10200126 from the Public Health Study Program, Faculty of Health Science, Muhammadiyah University, Surakarta. Here I will present my article entitled Compliance Behavior of Health Personnel in Relation to the Use of Personal Protective Equipment at Boyolali Hospital, Central Java, Indonesia. Introduction. Compliance refers to the willingness to understand and comply with the guidelines set by the authorities. The quality of health worker is determined by how well they comply with regulation governing the use of personal protective equipment or PPE when treating patients in hospital. Unsafe behavior when health workers are working without meeting standard for the use of personal protective equipment can cause accident and occupational disease. According to a preliminary study survey, the occurrence of work accident is caused by health workers not paying attention to occupational health and safety while working. Lack of caution in doing work and non-compliance of health workers in the use of PPE while working. This was obtained from the result of survey and interview with health workers at Boyolali X Hospital who said that health workers there are often and are used to doing work without using PPE. Next, based on explanation from several previous studies regarding compliance behavior in the use of PPE, there are still differences in the result of attitude, facility, support from CO worker, and supervision from superior. Therefore, researchers are interested in conducting research again regarding the factor that influence health worker compliance behavior in using PPE. By examining the factor developed by L. Green, which are applied to assess behavior, including attitude, availability of PPE facility, support from college, and supervision from superior, judging from the number of work accidents in hospital, which is still relatively high. This is caused by the large number of health workers who are not compliant in using PPE because compliance before behavior in using PPE is still low and there are still gaps in the result of previous research. Therefore, this study aims to determine the factor related to the compliance behavior of health workers in using PPE at Boyolali Hospital. Research method. Type and place of research. The research used an analytical design with a cross-sectional approach. This research was conducted at Boyolali Hospital. Population and sample. The population include all 215 health workers. The total sample was 154 people. Sample were taken using simple random sampling technique. Research variable, independent variable include attitude, PPE facilities, support from college, and supervision from superior. The dependent variable is the compliance behavior of health workers toward PPE. Research instrument, the questionnaire used to collect data has passed a validity test of 0.361 and a Cronbach alpha reliability test less than 0.60. Data collection technique, research collection data based distributing questionnaire to respondent, which were then filled in by the respondent themselves and give a pen as a memento. Data analysis use univariate and bivariate analysis using the chi-square test. Research ethics certificate. This research has received approval from the Research Ethics Committee of the Faculty of Health Science, Muhammadiyah University of Surakarta, as proven by certificate number 32, KEPK X 2023, which means that this research ethical standard. Next, result and discussion. Table 1, frequency distribution of respondent characteristic. The characteristic of respondent in this study include age, length of service, and last level of education. The number of health workers who were sampled in the study was 154 people. Based on the table of characteristic of respondent, it is known that the young age is 22 years and the old age is 57 years. 55.2% of respondents have a long tenure, while less than half, 44.8%, have recently entered the workforce. The majority of respondents, 62.3%, have complete post-secondary education, with the majority having a diplomacy education and a small percent having a vocational diploma, which is only 0.6%. Next, table 2, frequency distribution based on attitude, PPE facilities, CO worker support, supervision from superior, and compliance behavior. Next, table 3, the relationship of attitude, PPE facilities, CO worker support, and supervision from superior with PPE use compliance behavior. Based on the bivariate analysis table, it is known that the attitude variable shown that of 78 respondents who have a less attitude toward compliance with the use of PPA. There are 52 respondents who are not compliant with using PPA, and 26 respondents are obedient in using PPA. Meanwhile, on the 76 respondents who had a good attitude toward compliance.
Miss Sylvia,
Yes.
your time is already up, so you can go directly to the conclusions.
Yeah, the conclusion of this study shown that the use of PPA at hospital exploratory is influenced by several factors, including attitude, available PPA facility, peer support, and supervision from superior with the compliance behavior of health worker in the use of PPA at hospital exploratory. That's all my presentation.
Okay, thank you for Miss Sylviana for the presentations. To maximize the time, we will move to the next presenter. So, Miss Sylviana, you can end share screen. And then the next presenter is Miss Titi Nur Hasanah with the title The Relationship Between Knowledge About the Danger of Cigarettes and Smoking Behavior in the College Students. So get ready, Miss Titi, to prepare your presentation. Okay,
Bu
Miss
Yeni,
Titi.
nggak saya dulu Bu Yeni. Bu Yeni.
Halo, Miss Titi.
Iya Bu, maaf Bu, di jadwal itu Bu Tanjung dulu nih, atau ditukar?
Bu Yeni saya
Gimana?
dulu Bu.
Di jadwal itu Bu Tanjung dulu atau ditukar lagi Bu?
Okay. So, Miss Tanjung. So, okay. Okay. We will follow the schedule first. So, the speaker will be Miss Tanjung. So, Miss Tanjung, please. The time at screen is yours.
Okay, thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me to presentation our research. The title is the relationship of perceived stigma among people living HIV with utilization of care support and treatment in Solo Plus Peer Support Group, Surakarta. The background HIV/AIDS is still a global concern. In 2021, there will be around 6 million people living HIV, and in Indonesia, there will be 36 HIV cases and 76% know their status, and there are still 14% who have not accessed CSD services. And this is stigma and discrimination are still barriers in the world's response to overcome HIV. This perception of stigma is often felt by people living HIV, and its impact can influence the use of CSD. And also in Manahan, based on the survey at the Manahan Community Health Center, it was found that not all people living HIV visit CSD regular. And the literature review, if people living HIV are stigma and don't utilize CSD devices, it can affect the quality of life of PL's HIV. And the research purpose, the study aims to analyze the relationship between perceived stigma with utilization of CSD for people living HIV in the Solo Plus Peer Support Group. And then the method is collectional, the population and the sample is 110 people living HIV with a technique sampling was exhaustive sampling, independent variable was perceived stigma, and dependent variable was utilization of CSD, and also the analysis data we use Fisher Exact. This is our result. Majority of PL HIV were 23 until 28, and sex is female, 62%. The marital status was single, 55%, and long-time attending per support group were less than 4 years. And from bivariable bivariable analysis, it can be seen that perceived stigma and also the utilization CSD services majority was good, and also the p-value 0.023, and the perceived stigma was related to the use of CSD services among PL HIV. The result of the research are in line with research in Binjai and Lampung. And also the people living HIV use of CSD services will tend to be PL HIV who had a high perception of stigma. And the high perception of stigma comes more from self-stigma, so that PL HIV in the study still make good use of CSD services. This is because in health services and peer support groups, PL HIV don't experience stigma and discrimination. And the conclusion, the people living HIV don't use CSD services regularly because they feel that they are not good enough and afraid that other people will not accept them when they find out their status of HIV. And the stigma most often felt by PL HIV is internal stigma or self-stigma. And self-stigma is not addressed, it can affect the quality of life of PL HIV. So the effort to reduce self-stigma is participating in CSD services, including regularly participating in support group activities. So this is our presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Ms. Tanjo. So you can end your presentation and we can move for the next presenter. Okay, the next presenter is Miss Titi Nur Hasana. Miss Titi Nur Hasana. Okay, are you ready for presentation? For presenting your presentation, I mean. Okay. Times and screen is yours.
Thank you to Miss Yeni. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Introduce myself. My name is Titi Nurhasana from the Public Health Study Program, Faculty of Health Science, University Muhammadiyah Surakarta. In this presentation, I present a paper entitled The Relationship between knowledge about dangers of cigarettes and smoking behavior in junior high school students in the 7th International Conference of Health Viewing. Introduction. The globalists was study that the prevalence of additional smoking in Indonesia increased learning were around 25.9 million, 37%. Children have engaged in smoking behavior. In addition, according to the National Health Research, the incidence of smoking in the age group of 10 to 18 years in research of smoking in the age group from 7.2% 2013 and to 9% in 2018. Data from the Central Bureau of Statistics also fluctuation in the number of adolescents smoking in Central Java from 12.92% in 2019, increasing 20.93% 2020. The reason behind smoking in adolescence is lack of understanding of the dangers of smoking, Wijayanti 2017. Knowledge plays an important role in shaping individual behavior. If adolescents have a good knowledge about the risks of smoking, they are likely to prevent smoking behavior, and good knowledge will adults can to be able to determine what is good and bad. Knowledge is the result of individual observing or feeling a certain object. When adolescents are in environment with a high level of smoking behavior, they are likely influenced by their culture and environment. Lauren Grant's theory, adolescent smoking habits are influenced by three factors including and one producing factor, enabling factor, and reinforcing factor. According to Lawrence Green's story, one of the common factors that influence excellent smoking behavior in level of knowledge and attitude with it include in the predisposing factor. Introduction impact of smoking. The inverse effect is held. Numerous scientific studies reveal that smoking is the leading cause of the disease worldwide. And the second impact is economy is from the discretion divided, which contributes to poverty levels because most of them can is used to buy cigarettes. And the third social impact can affect the behavior of adolescents at school, namely the discretion of adolescent behavior and morality, such as absenteeism, disrupted learning achievement, dependence, and disrupted motivation to learn. And method, this is research design uses an analytic observational approach with a structural design. The population studied was all students of primary high school age. The total population was 150 students. The sample was taken using the sample random sampling technique, and a sample of 100 egg represent of 9. And the independent variable is knowledge about the danger of smoking, and dependent variable smoking behavior. Next, result, characteristic of respondent. Characteristic in this study, the number of sample in study were 108 respondents. It shows that the majority of respondents are male at 5.8%, while women are for 1.7%. In addition, the majority of respondents were 30 to 14 years, 75.9%. And next, respondent knowledge level and behavior. The results show that most respondents had sufficient knowledge about the risk smoking. a smooth, sporty neck 0%, men will 41.1% of respondents showed a good level analysis, but the remaining 10.2% had insufficient knowledge about the dangers of smoking. Then the frequency distribution of smoking in SMPX student illustrate the most respondent 75% not smoke and about 25% of respondents showed smoking behavior. Next, the relationship between Gunnelli and smoking between the results showed a significant relationship between the level of Gunnelli about the dangers of smoking and smoking behavior as junior high school. And next discussion. Respondents with good knowledge about the dangers of smoking then avoid smoking behavior. According to Natomacho 2014, the level of knowledge including 9. Understanding, application, analysis, and evaluation are in line with the context of this study. Based on theory, the students of junior high school have reached the level of application knowledge. Most of the respondents understood the dangers of smoking behavior, including their understanding of the harmful substance contained in cigarettes, the health effects, and difference between passive and active smoking. And next, respondents have a good and sufficient knowledge about smoking behavior caused by the social environment. This can be caused by environmental and social influences, source of first family cigarette and bursting as 23 research 2015. Factors such as education, aspiration, age, social culture, and environment can affect a personal life. In line with research by Prihatiningsi 2020, that the reason that influence include pressure from friends, the art to seek sensation, effort,
The time
logo,
already up, so you can go to direct to the conclusion.
And at conclusion, the result showed there was a significant relationship between knowledge about the dangers of cigarettes and smoking vapor in students. The spending have environment implication in effort to prevent smoking among adolescents and come from healthy and more knowledgeable younger generation. It is recommendation that school and cross-sector social school about the dangers of smoking by educating students about the impact of smoking with other influential factor, smoking habits, suggestion for future research to develop curriculum. Thank you for attention. Please interrupt and also let mention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Ms. Titi. And the next presenter will be Ms. Unzia Khadijah with the topic research about providing health education about diabetes mellitus on the level of knowledge in Gunung Anyar Tambak district in Surabaya City. So, Ms. Unzia Khadijah, please prepare your presentation. Ms. Unzia. Okay, I think Ms. Unzia is not coming today. So we're gonna move to the next presenter. The next presenter will be Vina Dewi Sundari. Vina Dewi Sundari, Miss Vina. Okay, Mbak Vina Sundari with the title Determinant of Chronic Energy Deficiency among Indonesian Women in the Preconception Period. Okay, get ready for your presentations and time and screen is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity that has been given. I'm Vina Dewi Sundari from Alma-Ata Graduate School of Public Health. As the presenter of the research, determinants of chronic energy deficiency among Indonesian women in the preconception period. The background of this research is preconception is the period before pregnancy occurs. During this period, nutritional support is needed at a higher concentration than in previous periods. One of the nutritional problems that often occurs during the preconception period is chronic energy deficiency or CED. In Indonesia, based on basic health research in 2018, it showed that the prevalence of CED in women of reproductive age who are not pregnant is 13.5%, and in pregnant women, the prevalence is 17.3%. Impact that can occur during pregnancy include impaired fetal growth, susceptibility to infectious disease, ongoing fatigue, decreased physical strength affecting the postnatal recovery period, and anemia. Meanwhile, the impact that occurs on children born if a pregnant mother has CED is increasing the risk of abortion and birth defect, premature birth, low birth weight, increasing the infant mortality rate, and maternal mortality rate. Several studies also show that maternal health factors can increase the risk of stunting in the children. Nutritional readiness during the preconception period really needs to be considered in order to improve the health status of mothers and children in Indonesia. However, in reality, nutritional problems among expectant mothers, including CED, are still high. Our previous study showed that the level of preconception nutritional readiness among premarital women in Bantul were very low. The first objective in this study is to obtain an overview of the preconception nutritional readiness of prospective breasts based on mid-upper arm circumference. And the second objective is determine the factors that influence the occurrence of CED in premarital women in 3 sub-districts in Bantul. 3 sub-districts are Delingo District, Pajangan District, and Imogiri District. This study was a cross-sectional study conducted in August to November 2023 in Delingo, Pajangan, and Imogiri sub-district. These 3 locations were selected because they have the highest prevalence of stunting in Bantul, and study on the health of premarital women in this area is still limited. The sample in this study were prospective breasts who meet the inclusion criteria, namely 1, not pregnant at the time of data collection, and 2, willing to take part in the research by signing an informed consent. The sample says with 113 premarital women selected using photo sampling technique. The dependent variable in this study was mid-upper arm circumference, or MUAC, which was measured using a measuring tape with the criteria that if the MUAC was less than 23.5 centimeter, it was categorized as being at risk of CED, and if it was more than equal 23.5 centimeter, it was categorized as not being at risk of CED. Independent variable in this study were the socio-demographic characteristic of the woman, which include age, highest level of education, employment status, and income level. Other independent variable were BMI, level of knowledge about preconception nutrition, and history of preconception nutrition counseling. Socio-demographic variable and counseling history were taken using a questionnaire, while knowledge level variable were measured using a validated questionnaire consisting of 25 questions. Furthermore, knowledge was categorized into two categories, namely love, if less than 75% of question answered correctly, and height if more than equal to 75% of question answered correctly. The BMI variable was calculated based on their height and weight using a microtaste for height measurement and digital scale for weight measurement. Subjects were grouped into two categories, namely BMI less than 18.5 kilogram per square meter and BMI more than equal 18.5 kilogram per square meter. This study went through three stages of analysis. For the first is univariate analysis, was carried out to describing the characteristic of the subject. Then bivariate analysis was carried out to determine the risk factor for CED using the chi-square test, and multivariate analysis was carried out to determine the most dominant factor influencing the occurrence of CED in premarital women. Multivariate analysis used logistic regression test. The ethical clearance of the study was approved by the Research Ethics Committee, the University of Alma-Ata, Yogyakarta, Indonesia. After going through the analysis stage, the results were obtained a total of 130 prospective brides in Bantul Regency were eligible to take part in the study. The age of premarital women was dominated by those age under less than equal 25 years, and majority has a secondary level of education. More than 3/4 of the respondents were currently working, and 65.9% have incomes below the district minimum monthly wage. The result also saw that 91.1% of the respondents had low level of knowledge regarding preconception nutrition, and 51.3% said that they had received counseling regarding preconception nutrition. The percentage of respondents who were overweight was higher than those who were underweight. As many as 26.5% of respondents were deemed to be at risk of CED with a mid-upper arm circumference of less than 23.5 centimeters. The study revealed a significant relationship between age and mid-upper arm circumference. Subject age less than equal 25 years had a risk of CED 4.7 times higher than subject age more than 25 years. In addition, the logistic regression analysis revealed that after controlling another variable, age became one of the factors that had a strong association in determining the subject MUAC. The reason for this influence is because as people get older, the experience they gain will increase, so that they can increase their knowledge, which can be the basic for changing behavior positive direction to support nutritional status. This was also proven by the result of this study, which revealed that the subject knowledge.
Gina,
Yes.
your time is almost done, so you can just make it short and go to directly to the conclusion.
Okay. My conclusion is there was a relationship between age, education, education level and BMI with the risk of CED for premarital women in battle regency. Meanwhile, the variable of work status, level of knowledge, educational history, and level of income did not have a significant relationship with the risk of CED. Body mass index is the variable that has the strongest relationship with the risk of CED compared to other significant variables. Intervention to improve nutritional status in premarital women should be considered. Thank you. I return to the moderator.
Okay, thank you, Miss Hina. So you can end your presentation. So okay, we're gonna like go ahead to the next presenter. The next presenter is Miss Dewi Astuti. Miss Dewi Astuti, are you ready?
Sebelumnya mohon maaf Bu, PPT saya itu bikinnya dalam bahasa Indonesia.
What's your title is Indonesia or Bahasa?
Indonesia.
Okay, just go ahead. You can use Bahasa Indonesia.
Thank you Bu. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Saya Dewi Astuti, NIM J410191090. Di sini saya akan mempresentasikan literatur review ASI eksklusif dengan kejadian stunting pada balita tahun 2020 sampai dengan 2023 di Indonesia. Adapun untuk mendahulunya, stunting masih menjadi salah satu masalah kesehatan pada status gizi di Indonesia. Secara global, prevalensi stunting usia anak kurang dari 5 tahun pada tahun 2019 adalah 21,3% atau sebanyak 144 juta, dan berdasarkan hasil survei status gizi Indonesia atau SSGI tahun 2021, prevalensi stunting Indonesia sebesar 24,4%. ASI eksklusif sebagai pelengkap nutrisi yang dapat meningkatkan daya tahan tubuh dan perkembangan kecerdasan baik mental, emosional, dan sosial dalam intervensi menurunkan kejadian stunting. Tujuan penelitian yaitu mengkaji pemberian ASI eksklusif terhadap kejadian stunting pada balita. Di sini terdapat tiga penelitian menyatakan bahwa pemberian ASI eksklusif tidak mempengaruhi kejadian stunting pada balita, yaitu penelitian dilakukan oleh Dewi dan juga Mukminah tahun 2020 di Puskesmas Sumbang 1, Kabupaten Banyumas, dengan nilai P 0,372. Penelitian oleh Luh et al. 2021 di Puskesmas Banjar 1 dengan nilai P 0,536 dan penelitian oleh Domili et al. 2021 di Kelurahan Padebuolo, Kota Gorontalo dengan nilai P 0,797. Namun hal tersebut berbanding terbalik dengan dua hasil penelitian bahwa pemberian ASI eksklusif mempengaruhi kejadian stunting pada balita, yaitu pada penelitian Asmin dan Abdullah 2021 di Puskesmas Rumah 3 Ambon dan nilai P-nya 0,001, dan hasil penelitian Reza tahun 2022 di wilayah UPTD Puskesmas Ule Kareng, Kecamatan Ule Kareng, Kota Banda Aceh dengan nilai P 0,00. Berdasarkan kajian di atas, ada ketidakkonsistenan dalam hasil penelitian-penelitian sebelumnya yang melatar belakangi peneliti tertarik untuk mengkaji ulang tentang stunting ditinjau dari pemberian ASI eksklusif. Kemudian untuk metode penelitiannya di sini menggunakan design study literatur review dengan mengkaji 5 artikel publikasi mulai tahun terbit 2020 sampai dengan 2023. Untuk sumber datanya, pencarian literatur dari database mendapatkan 1.575 artikel dari Google Scholar sebanyak 350, Akademia 175, Publish or Perish 1.000, PubMed 3, dan SESDirect 47. Dari 175 artikel yang sudah diseleksi menggunakan kriteria inklusi, didapatkan hasil akhir 5 artikel diantaranya Dewi dan Muminah tahun 2020, Luh dengan indeks Sinta 4, kemudian Asmin dan Abdullah tahun 2021 Sinta 2, kemudian Domili dengan indeks Sinta 2, dan Reza 2020 dengan indeks Sinta 2. Kemudian untuk kata kuncinya di sini menggunakan analisis hubungan Asia eksklusif, stunting, dan juga balita. Adapun untuk kriteria penelitian inklusi, di sini peneliti menggunakan variabel bebas pemberian Asia eksklusif, kemudian variabel terikat stunting dipublikasikan tahun 2020 sampai dengan 2023, diakses secara full text penelitian di desa dan juga puskesmas, artikel berindeks Sinta dan juga ber-ISSN, dan juga menggunakan metode cross-sectional. Adapun untuk alur pengumpulan literatur reviewnya, sebanyak 1.575 literatur terindeks dalam pencarian menggunakan database Google Scholar 350, Akademia Edu 175, Publish or Perish 1.000, dan PubMed 3. Kemudian sedangkan SESDirect 47. Artikel diseleksi dengan kriteria inklusi, variabel bebas pemberian Asia eksklusif, dan variabel terikat stunting pada balita. Artikel dipublikasikan melalui tahun terbit 2020 sampai dengan 2023, dapat diakses secara full text dan lokasi penelitian di desa dan juga puskesmas. Kemudian artikel dikeluarkan karena tidak sesuai dengan kriteria inklusi 1.565, menyisakan 10 artikel diseleksi dengan kriteria inklusi, artikel ber-ISN dan indeks Sinta. Kemudian artikel dikeluarkan sebanyak 2 dan tersisa 8 artikel diseleksi menggunakan inklusi kriteria artikel menggunakan cross-sectional. Kemudian artikel dikeluarkan karena tidak sesuai dengan inklusi sebanyak 3 dan menyisakan 5 yang layak untuk dikaji literatur. Adapun untuk hasil penelitian, karakteristik responden ibu yaitu meliputi usia, pendidikan, dan juga pekerjaan. Untuk karakteristik responden balita, di sini terdapat jenis kelamin, usia, dan juga pemberian Asia eksklusif. Adapun untuk metode yang digunakan, di sini menggunakan metode cross-sectional. Pada 5 artikel tersebut menggunakan teknik sampling, purposive sampling, stratified random sampling, dan juga 2 artikel tidak mencantumkan teknik sampling yang digunakan pada penelitian Asmin dan juga Domili. Pada Reza menggunakan teknik sampling proporsional simple random sampling dan menggunakan uji statistik chi-square. Untuk analisis bivariatnya, di sini keterangannya untuk Dewi dan juga Muminah pada pemberian Asia eksklusif terhadap kejadian stunting pada balita tidak terdapat hubungan, Lu et al. Tidak terdapat hubungan, Asmin terdapat hubungan, Domili tidak terdapat hubungan, dan Reza terdapat hubungan. Untuk pembahasannya, berdasarkan hasil penelitian yang dilakukan tentang hubungan pemberian Asia eksklusif dengan kejadian stunting pada balita tahun 2020 sampai dengan tahun 2003, di Indonesia merupakan suatu tolak ukur sejauh mana pemberian Asia eksklusif berpengaruh terhadap kejadian stunting pada balita. Stunting merupakan kondisi gagal tumbuh pada balita akibat kekurangan gizi kronis sehingga anak memiliki tinggi badan yang pendek jika dibandingkan dengan usianya. Kekurangan gizi ini sudah terjadi sejak bayi dalam kandungan dan pada awal kelahiran, namun kondisi stunting baru nampak setelah bayi berusia 2 tahun. Salah satu intervensi spesifik dalam menurunkan kejadian stunting yaitu dengan cara memberikan ASI eksklusif. Hasil kajian literatur review pada 5 artikel yang didapat, sebanyak 3 artikel menyatakan pemberian ASI eksklusif tidak ada hubungan dengan kejadian stunting pada balita, dibuktikan dengan penelitian Dewi dan Muminah 2020, kemudian penelitian Luh 2021, penelitian Domili 2021, sedangkan pada 2 artikel menyatakan pemberian ASI eksklusif terdapat hubungan dengan kejadian stunting pada balita, yaitu dibuktikan dengan penelitian Asmin Abdullah dan juga Reza. Berdasarkan referensi pada beberapa penelitian menyatakan bahwa ada hubungan pemberian ASI eksklusif dengan kejadian stunting pada balita, dibuktikan oleh beberapa penelitian menurut Barir Murti, Pamungkasari 2019, Melanda tahun 2020, Triana dan Haniah 2020, SJMJ Toban dan Madi 2020, Lestari dan Duhesti 2020, Dwi Saputri dan Ahmad Fahrudin 2022, dan Wardah Suswandani 2019. Hasil survei menunjukkan bahwa stunting merupakan salah satu masalah kesehatan yang sering terjadi di Indonesia.
Dewi Astuti,
Ya,
you can make it short because your time is already up, so you can go directly to the conclusion.
adapun untuk kesimpulan pada penelitian ini yaitu 2 artikel menyatakan terdapat hubungan antara pemberian ASI eksklusif dengan kejadian stunting pada balita, dan 3 artikel menyatakan tidak terdapat hubungan antara pemberian ASI eksklusif dengan kejadian stunting pada balita. Demikian presentasi saya. Terima kasih atas waktunya, Ibu.
Okay. Please end your presentation. Okay, thank you for Ms. Dewi Astuti. So the next presenter is Ms. Ati Nurhayati with the title Analysis and Implementation of Electronic Medical Record to Quality Service in Hospital. Ms. Asi? I think Ms. Asi is not coming today. Hello, Ms. Asi? Okay. Due to Ms. Asi is not coming, so and all participants, all the presenters have present their presentation, so we can just end our presentation session. Thank you very much for all of the participants and the presenter today, and you can go back to the main room to wait the announcement of the best presenter. So thank you. And the last, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.